My goal for test day would probably be to break the 160s, which I know is hard when my practice tests aren't at that level. But I feel like I have a very good understanding of the test, of the question types, how to approach everything. I think there's just some sort of like gap in my understanding of, certain stimuli, certain wrong answer traps that I'm getting, locked in. And timing has been my main opponent on this test. It's been very difficult.
I hear you on that. Yeah, I mean, you're really not that far off from your goal. I mean, to get a 5-point increase or so in 2 weeks is quite reasonable to me if we can identify some particular weak areas to focus on. So you mentioned timing being a big one. And then
Yes.
are there certain question types that you're struggling with in particular?
I'd say necessary assumption is my big the question I get wrong the most frequently, but it's not like I'm getting 5 necessary assumption questions wrong on a test and nothing else correct. It'll just be like every test I get 1 necessary assumption question wrong, in addition to like role in the argument, strengthen. So it does vary.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, necessary
Yeah.
is a big opportunity though, because they're a more common type.
Right.
How do you feel about negation? Are you pretty clear on negation and how to negate choices?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm very good at negation. So I just tend to, I think for necessary assumption, I don't look at I'm not understanding the argument well enough to fully, break that link. I feel like my goal is to get rid of the conclusion rather than kind of dismantle the argument. So I've been working on that lately. I've been choosing more sufficient assumption questions.
Okay. So do you mean that you're more drawn to sufficient assumption answers?
Answers, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So you see like attempting sufficient assumption answer. So you'd pick that, which is more strong language than a more moderate necessary assumption. Okay. So you're aware of your issue. It's just a matter of building the habit, being conscious of the mistakes you're prone to falling for. And then maybe in addition to how often are you taking practice tests?
3 times a week.
Oh, good. Are you just studying LSAT full time?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So that is the one situation where I'd say it's okay to do 3 a week. That's good. I also want to make sure that you're reviewing sufficiently and in depth. And then for every necessary question that you get wrong, look at what tempted you about the wrong answer. So if you could see you are consistently drawn to stronger language, like attempting sufficient assumption answer to a necessary assumption question, hopefully you make that mistake enough times now, you don't make it on test day. I mean, for example, there's a really classic question. It's the rattlesnake folktale question. If you just Google it, you'll find it. It's one of the hardest LRs questions of all time. That one, they put a really tempting sufficient assumption answer earlier than the more moderate and more unappealing necessary assumption answer choice. So just remember that for necessary, you want to gravitate towards more moderate language, all else being equal, because a more moderate choice is more likely to have been supported or required by the stimulus than a more extreme answer choice would be. Is that clicking?
Yes. And I feel like totally. And I've been watching all your videos, going through the Unplugged curriculum, and I'm hearing your tips. I'm telling myself to do it. But when it comes to the test, I'm still making those, same careless mistakes where I'm like, oh, how could I have put that? That's obviously, a sufficient assumption, or for this role in the argument, like I totally confuse that language. It's, obviously not this. When I'm going over it, I'm really understanding my issue. There's just something going on, during the test, whether it's nerves or timing, that I'm missing a lot of stuff. Do you have any tips on how to fix this? I've 2 full weeks before the test.
Yeah. My first thought is maybe doing 3 exams a week might be too much. I know that you have the time in your schedule, but I'm wondering if you dropped that down to 2 exams a week and you reviewed a bit more. And you, of course, you're in the boot camp, right? So you're meeting with your coach consistently?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I would do those 2 exams, discuss them with your coach, and then spend some more time on your own reviewing your mistakes in more depth. I think that you don't need the same cadence or frequency of 3 a week. I think that 2 a week with deeper review of your mistakes, if you can linger on them a bit longer, you're then going to be more likely to learn the lesson on a deeper level, so that you don't repeat it on your next practice test.
Gotcha. So rather than drilling and drilling, which is what I've been doing, go through each, wrong answer. I do make the wrong answer journal. I have like a running Google Doc with that. So that's definitely been helpful. But there's no my mistakes vary from question to question. It's, whether it's a trap answer or identifying, the wrong part of the stimulus as, the loophole or the gap in the argument.
Yeah, so your mistakes vary, but I mean, you're still noting the consistent one of
Right.
necessary assumptions and choosing the tempting wrong answer. And so
Yes.
I feel like you might be in a place where you're making the same mistakes repeatedly and not, so you're learning them in theory, but not in practice. And so my thought
Yes.
is if
Yes.
you can linger a bit more on the mistakes, you'll learn the lesson more deeply. And also if you could maybe slow down a little bit during your tests, do you feel like you might have, do you have any time, do you think, to spend a little more time on the argument itself before you go into the choices?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I mean,
I think that would help a lot.
when you get to the end of a logical reasoning section, you have time remaining.
Sometimes I'll have at max like 3 to 5 minutes.
That's a good amount. 3 to 5 minutes at the end of a section, right? I mean, that's maybe even more than you need.
Okay.
So in other words, if you slowed it down a little bit and gave yourself an extra 10 seconds per question, and
Yeah.
out of the 25 in this section, and you had only 2 or 3 minutes instead of 3 to 5, maybe that would raise your accuracy more.
Gotcha. For sure.
I think that 5 might be too much of a buffer. I think that if you had even just 1 or 2 minutes remaining, but you slow down, you would make fewer mistakes because you would allow yourself more time to implement what you're learning during your review.
That's a great idea. I feel like if I'd understand the argument, I'd probably even answer the questions quicker.
Exactly. It all comes down to understanding the argument on a deeper level. And I think that you're doing so much else right. I think this might just be the missing piece. Slow down. And then before you start your exam, review your mistake journal, think through the mistakes that you're most prone to falling for, and just give yourself that quick reminder. Like if you can distill your mistake journal lessons or takeaways into a bulleted list of maybe 5 or 10 or whatever it is, and you just review them before each practice test and then before the actual, I think that might be all you need to get your 5-point increase.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Anything else?
I guess I have a question for reading comprehension. I kind of have the opposite problem. I'm much slower on RC. I do the tips that I think your program specifies, as well as 7-stage, which is like doing the low res summaries. Like I just map a little bit on structure. And I have a very good I'll finish the article. I have a really good understanding of the structure. I can pretty much say what's going on sequentially, like in paragraph 1, like a very, very broad understanding, which is what I was told to come out of it knowing, like a broad understanding and no structure and author's opinion. But then when I get to the questions, I feel like they're very specific. And for every question, I have to go back into the passage and double check, look over it. And I'm just wasting so much time. And I don't think I've ever fully completed a reading comprehension.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the low res summaries, the skeleton of the passage, getting the structure down, that's going to help with the global questions like main idea, primary purpose, passage organization, all of that. But that isn't necessarily going to help you solve the detail oriented questions which come next. So I do think that going back to the passage text is okay. The key is knowing where the details are, so you can find them when you need to help you solve a specific question, so that you're not scanning through all 450 words or all 4 paragraphs or whatever it is, but instead you can hone in specifically on, like, laser focused on that key line, like the end of paragraph 2 or the beginning of paragraph 4, where the details are that you need. So when you read the passage, can you look for where those elements appear?
Gotcha. And do you recommend highlighting? I feel like there's a mixed consensus on that one. I know you say to write, the people who do the best write the least, do the least on the paper, but what would you recommend? Because when I do nothing, I'm not getting a good understanding of it. I'm more interactive when I, force myself to write and highlight.
I almost don't want to give you an answer on this personally, just because your exam is in 2 weeks and this is not the time to try anything new. Broadly speaking, as you've heard me say, like, I find this to do the best mark very little or not at all, just because it takes time. And the highlighter tool is kind of glitchy, so I don't love using it. I hear you on what you're saying though about how you feel like not doing any notes at all is not working for you.
Mhm, mhm.
What's your current approach actually like right now?
Like I'll read the first paragraph, paraphrase, tell myself, give myself like a translation of what it said in plainer English. I do that for each paragraph, and then I highlight the anything of the author's opinion or important words, or different like point of views if it's a debate or critique passage, and then I'll pre-phrase the main point, and then I go into the questions.
And how long is all that taking you?
Almost 8 minutes.
To read the passage and solve the questions.
No, 8 minutes for reading, highlighting, writing everything down. So it's taking up so much time.
Do you get extra time on test day or are you taking standard 35 minutes?
The standard.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, of course, if that whole process takes you 8 minutes and you haven't gotten to the questions yet and you only have an average of 8:45, I mean, you're not finishing the
Yeah,
section, are you?
I'm not. Never. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, the status quo isn't going to work, right? You've got your test in
Right.
2 weeks. We've got to do something radically different here so that you actually can complete the section or at least complete 3 passages. So,
Right.
my first thought here is we've got to shave off some of what you're doing. We got to have to reduce the upfront work. If we could even bring it
Mhm,
from 8 minutes on your initial read to 4 minutes on your initial read,
mhm.
that would do wonders for your ability to have time to solve questions.
Yes.
I mean, what you're there, you'll see a lot of programs give you a lot of theory or scaffolding to do as set up for the
Mhm,
passage, but unfortunately, a lot of that doesn't actually work under real world test day conditions with the timing as you're seeing. So, can we maybe try this for example? We cut all the highlighting out.
mhm,
We still let you do some note taking, but
mhm.
less. Could you
Okay.
jot down only 3 or 4 words for each paragraph? Would that allow you to feel like you're doing something tangible with the text?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because I'm usually writing down like a sentence, if not bullet points, a couple things said. So it's totally a time waster.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to find a compromise here between what I would
Mhm,
consider to be the ideal versus what feels natural or comfortable for you to feel like you're still doing something to process the information from the passage and summarize it briefly. And so I'm cutting out the highlighter because it's a glitchy tool, as anyone will see on Law Hub directly. It doesn't work that
mhm,
well. It's not that precise. Third-party platforms, maybe it works better, but Test Day is like Law Hub. And then we keep your writing on the scratch paper very light, but it's still
yeah.
something. My ideal recommendation, time allocation wise, is 2.5 to 3 minutes on your initial read of the passage.
Mhm,
And that way you have 5:45 to solve the questions associated. So that would be like my ideal target. I'm not saying you've got to
gotcha.
get there. I'm not saying you got to get there in 2 weeks. Maybe you can
Mhm,
though, because you're studying it full time. But if you could
yeah.
even shave it down from 8 minutes on your upfront work to
Yeah.
4 minutes on your upfront work, that's
Mhm,
4 more minutes to solve the questions. And it brings you closer to having an average of a minute per question associated with the passage. So I would say
gotcha.
try that out.
Mhm. And you're going in like when I'm reading the questions, I go back into the passage and look for them because usually I try not to look back at all into the passage.
For the detailed questions, I think it's okay as long as you
Mhm,
can go specifically to a certain part of the passage, meaning you're not rereading the entire thing, but you
right.
know that end of paragraph 2, that's where they shared the laundry list of details. Or beginning of
Mhm,
paragraph 4, here's where they gave me a run on sentence with lots of commas and a lot of examples.
mhm. Gotcha.
Cool. How you feeling,
Sounds
Brianna?
good. Much better. Thank you so much for your
Awesome.
time.
Fantastic. Keep me posted as things happen and unfold in these final 2 weeks.
We'll do. We'll do. Thank you so much, Steve.
For sure.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good one. Take care. Bye.
You too. You too. Bye.